Hello and welcome to Whatever Happened to the Gentlemen. I'm your host, SMr&x, and I am a certified empowered dating, relationship skills and sex coach. And I've been doing this for a really long time, over 10 years now. So in today's episode, I am talking to Julia Stapleton from The Alchemy of Creation. And this was a conversation that I was really, really excited about. As you know, I'm starting to get guests on the show. And when I read Julia's About Me section, it just kind of really fit with everything that I know and everything that I love. Because Julia works on manifestation, she works on mindset, and she works on frequencies. If you've been listening to this podcast for a little while, or if you are taking one of my programs, or if you are a one-to-one client, you will know that I always go from a place of you get back what you put out. So have a listen to the episode. There are some super quick, simple tips on how to change your vibrational frequency, what it is, of course, and how to manifest the life that you've always dreamed of. Hello, I have got Julia Stapleton with me today. She is a mindset and manifestation and a frequencies expert. Julia, would you like to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Well, I am a manifestation and mindset mentor, and I also call myself a frequencies expert because it is an area of expertise for me, and I'll explain why in a minute. And it's not something people talk about much. It is a little bit more on the woo side, but I bridge it with physical and physics and science a lot due to my career. So I talk about it a lot, and that's a passion of mine. That is something that I can talk for hours and hours, and that is probably something we will touch on today. But how it all started for me was my career started in tech, in telecommunications. So that's where all this whole frequency thing comes from. All of the tech basically runs on frequencies. Apart from the usual things that you hear that everything is a frequency, everything is a vibration, because everything is made out of atoms, and atoms have electrons in them which vibrate constantly. So therefore everything in the universe has a vibration. But in terms of the physical 3D world that we live in, the frequencies and vibration that I was used to in my career were to do with technology. And it is something that I've had a lot of experience in. And when I discovered manifestation back quite a few years ago when I was trying to get pregnant with my son, and I dove into the world of manifestation, it was like one of those aha moments when you kind of listen to something and you feel like your soul really resonates with something, like it's a memory, and it's kind of that excitement that you get. And it was that realization for me, like it's real life magic, that I've realized you can actually do magic with your own mind. That's all you need. And you can do it in your world to create your reality. So from that point, basically, I went on a journey of self-discovery and learning all of the different tools and diving into this self-development world and trying all the different modalities and things like, human design and personality tests and manifestation techniques like your hypnosis, meditations, you name it, like a lot of these things that I've tried. And it was great, and I've manifested a lot of things, and I manifested my son that I was trying to manifest originally when I found myself on this journey. And then what happened was I got a little bit burnt out from this constant self-development. And I'm one of those people who kind of go all in once I discover something and I'm really passionate about it, whether it's a hobby or something else. I really go all in and I try to learn as much as possible and really hone in my skill. And in this case, I got to a point where I just got burnt out. The more I found out about it, the more I realized how little I actually knew. And it was getting to the point where, like, how much more do I have to learn to be able to even manifest things? It was starting to feel like for me to create what I wanted to create, I have to learn this first, then that, and then something else. But then I can't forget about this other thing because without that, I just can't break through that limiting belief or whatever it is. So it was that moment, like I thought to myself, do I know enough? Do I just stop? Do I just kind of have a break from it all? And at that time, I discovered a different mentor for like this consciousness and manifestation side of things. And she really took me through a process where I really unplugged from all of this chasing and really reconnected with the source, with the universe, and really gone through a very deep awakening. And during that process, I've also activated a lot of gifts, a lot of spiritual gifts in myself too. And at the end of that, as I've gone through what we call a void and everything was breaking down and everything was just shifting and rearranging itself, what happened was another big aha moment for me. I've suddenly realized that this whole frequency and vibrational alignment that everyone was always talking about in terms of being able to manifest whatever you wanted to manifest, like you have to become a vibrational match to your dream life, to the money, to the millions of dollars. And that never clicked for me because I couldn't understand how do you spiritually become a vibration, which to me sounded very physical because that's what I'm used to. So at the end of that awakening, it was just like one of those aha moments, and the clouds parted and birds started singing. And it finally clicked for me how to actually understand the vibration in spiritual terms, like I understand it in physics, and for a logical mind like mine, how to actually become that vibrational match so that you can create things. So even things like you can go really crazy, like you think a thought, you imagine something, and it's so pure, it's so vivid, like it's so real that it happens within hours, sometimes within minutes. So it basically became that kind of journey for me of practicing the skill and really trying different things and really learning more about how to help people understand it as well. And that's what brought me to the business that I'm in today, this coaching and mentoring business, which looked very different before my spiritual journey. And that's what I help people with now. I help them realign in the frequency and vibration of their desired life, of their desired outcomes. And through that process, also help them feel better about themselves, really regulate that nervous system, really find peace within themselves, really find happiness within themselves. Because there's no point manifesting a whole lot of money if you feel miserable all the time. So that's what I help people to do.
So when you say obviously you got to burnout, was that because you were kind of trying to make too many changes all at one time? And because I know that you said that you just wanted different things. Do you think that that kind of fed into it as well? Of you was trying to, you've obviously manifested your son, which congratulations. And I know we already said he's 3, right?
Yes, he's three and a
When
half.
we
Yeah.
when we spoke separately. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Is that part of what it was, that you were trying to do too much at one time?
Not really, because I'm kind of used to doing a whole lot of things. I'm one of those multi-passionate people and I just can't sit still. So I usually do have a lot of things going on. So it wasn't that I had a lot going on. It was more emotional burnout in terms of I keep trying to do something, it's not happening. So I think, and you probably relate in business because that's how a lot of entrepreneurs in the early stages think. They do like a strategy, it doesn't work. They think, okay, I don't know something, so they learn something else, and that doesn't work. Like, well, what am I doing wrong? So I'm like, someone must be hiding a secret. So then you try something else. It was kind of the same way. I just kept trying to learn things, and then the more I learn, I find out that someone else is talking about something else, which is a better, more effective way, or something that people don't understand from this angle. And I think, okay, well, if I want to really achieve the big goals that I'm going for, I have to know that is as well. Otherwise, I'm not going to get there. So before even trying, I have to go and learn this. And
Yeah.
then I learn that, and then I find out about something else. And then it's like that never-ending cycle. So it was more of an emotional, energetic burnout rather than just doing a whole lot of different things.
Oh, okay. And I think that does happen. And I know because I'm a bit like you and I go full pelt into everything and I've got multiple things going on at one time. I don't know whether it was just the way that I was built, that it's always kind of been like that. But it does happen where people, they'll see one coach, one mentor, one person on YouTube, and then they start to kind of follow that way, and then they're introduced to something else, and it gets a little bit like, well, what's right, what's wrong, and it's overwhelming because I've had it. Obviously, we have the same coach, right?
Mm-hmm.
In you,
Yep.
and I was planning on going to another conference in May this year. And I sat and I thought about it, and I thought, you know what? Actually, if I go, I'm just going to learn a whole load of new stuff that I don't need because I'm already working on one thing and I need to keep it kind of on that at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe in the future, but
Yeah.
not right now.
Yeah, it's one of those things like at some point you get to that stage and you're like, you know what? I don't need more. I need to get good at what I already know, because with business, any strategy will work, as we know. It's just, and everyone says my strategy has worked for me and my clients. Someone else says my strategy has worked for me and my clients. Well, they all work, don't they? But if something is not working for you, you just need to figure out what's aligned and what's like what tweaks you need to make, and it's probably just the little shifts, and it could even be just the mindset shifts or energetic shifts, but just like pick one and then stick with it. And the same thing with healing modalities and different manifestation techniques and things like that. you know any of them will work. Maybe some are better than others, and I'm all in on the way that I do things because I feel like it's at the core of everything. But at the same time, different techniques have also worked for many different people. So it's like pick something, and then like you were saying, the word overwhelm. So that was kind of when I was saying burnout, to me, like overwhelm and burnout kind of fit in together, because that's what it was feeling like. It wasn't that I was doing too many things and they were getting out of control. It was that kind of helplessness because I just can't do more.
Yeah.
And I feel like I need to do more in order to get to where I'm going.
Yeah. I think with the frequencies and the manifestations, it's so interesting. And I have a bit in my program where I get my people to go through a kind of a scenario where they have turned around, something bad has happened to them in a relationship, and their first thought is, I knew that was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the exercise is going through, well, think about other times that you have known something's going to happen, or you've had a thought where you're like, oh, I could really do with some coffee, and you're in a
Mm-hmm.
different area that you don't know, and randomly you walk around the corner, there's a
Yep.
coffee shop. But in relationships and when people are dating, a lot of the time, a lot of the people that come to me will say, well, they cheated on me, but I knew it was going to happen. And then I kind of start saying to them, but how did you know? And it's that process of a thought. And that is pretty much what you do, isn't it? That's what you teach about.
It is. It is a thought, because like that's it. A thought is basically an energetic frequency transmission.
So if someone was trying to not get that outcome,
Mm-hmm.
what would your advice be to change that frequency?
Well, everything starts at your core, deep in your nervous system. So how I usually talk about it is your conscious mind is like the tip of the iceberg, that part above the water. Your subconscious mind is responsible for over 80% of your thoughts and actions. So your subconscious mind really drives the show, right? So that's the bottom part of the iceberg. But where is the iceberg floating? In the water, in the ocean, wherever it is, that is the environment that it's in. And the environment plays a big part. Water starts warming up, what happens to the iceberg? Water flows, what happens to the iceberg? So your environment needs to be conducive to the change you want to create. And to me, environment is your nervous system and your frequency. So when you shift that, then your subconscious mind feels comfortable and safe in accepting that change. And when it's safe to accept the change, that's when you can rewire your subconscious mind, and then your thoughts will follow. You will have different thoughts. Your thoughts will lead to different actions will lead to different outcomes. So it all starts at the core and in your nervous system, and that's deeper than your subconscious mind, because your subconscious mind, when you try to create a change, subconscious mind resists it, because the subconscious mind, it's unfamiliar, and anything unfamiliar is dangerous, because the subconscious mind, it sees everything as normal the way it is now, because you're here, you're living, you might not be living well, you might not be feeling very well, but your subconscious mind, you're surviving. That means the way we are now is fine. If we change something, that may not be fine, so that's dangerous. And for it to feel calm when you're trying to create the change, so that it's not going to overdrive and change your behaviors back to where it was before, back to your old beliefs, your nervous system really needs to feel. It's kind of like when you think about something, when you're in a dangerous situation or you feel like something's off, how do you feel it first? Your body tells you there's something wrong, like you might be starting to sweat or whatever. It's like you're not thinking first, dangerous situation, and then taking action, do something about it, and then feel something about it. It starts from the core. First, your body kind of, the only way I can explain it, it kind of vibrates differently. Like you feel it in your body first, then there might be emotion, then you might feel that emotion somewhere in your body, like your stomach might tighten or your throat might hurt, or like something starts ringing in your head. You start feeling that emotion or that fear, because fear is emotion. So you start feeling it. Then you get the thought, danger, run away from here, or go somewhere else, hide or whatever. And then the action follows. So it's that body reaction that you need to change. And the way I do it with clients is we work on clearing that emotion that comes up when you think about a situation, when there's some sort of a trigger, when there is like a limiting belief around something. All of them have emotions associated with them, and that emotion creates certain energy and vibration within the body. So when we can clear that, we can bring it back to neutral, calm state. Then we can put a different one into it that we want to feel. And the good baseline is calm, peace, happiness. When you have that as a baseline, then you can choose to feel something else, because a lot of the time emotion is a choice. Like you choose to feel something or choose to think something, and then you choose to react a certain way. You think that a lot of these things happen to you, but you still have certain control over it. Now, that's not to say that there's certain PTSD and things like that where your mind has lost control over your body and your emotions, in which case you need something else to give your mind that control back. But once your mind can have a form of control, you can start with little steps, with just thinking about a situation, a memory about something, and then build up, kind of like building up a muscle. So then you go a little bit further, you think about it more, you imagine it a bit more, or you put yourself back into that situation, whatever one it is. Obviously, don't put yourself in a dangerous situation, but where, like a situation around money, for example, money is very big in all sorts of different contexts. So, for example, you have a big bill to pay. Well, next time you're expecting a big bill to come, well, you can practice after you've practiced on the smaller bills, you can practice on the big bill so that when you see that big bill and you have to transfer that huge sum of money, you can make sure that your nervous system is calm, you're clearing everything that's coming up, you're bringing it back to neutral. So in other words, like don't put yourself back into like at a gunpoint or something. If that's what you've, experienced before, that's a different thing. But to us, to our minds, when we think about an unexpected bill and what that amount of money means for us, sometimes we do feel it like we're at the gunpoint almost. It's like sometimes it's even irrational reactions to certain things. Okay, well, $5, $500, $5,000, but it's the meaning we put around it. And it's those meanings that we kind of have to detach from in order to clear things from our system. I hope I haven't lost anyone there.
No, I think so. Going back to the bodily reactions, because I do a lot about bodily reactions as well, because I'm trained to help people reduce their anger. And anger, the body starts reacting before you start reacting. But for anyone that is kind of struggling with that concept, I think an example, and this one is kind of more relevant to women, of your body reacting and sensing danger before you even kind of can process that, is if you've ever had a feeling that you're being followed, or if you have had a feeling that you're being watched, and it's your body that is the instinct behind that, rather than you, it's not like a proper thought process. And it does come from, years and years ago, when we all had to sense whether we were in danger, because there might be a wild animal there that's going to come and kill you. Obviously we don't live in that world anymore, where we're literally going out and gathering food ourselves, but that is where it kind of comes from. And I think I don't like to go with men and women, but it is more common with women around the kind of being followed. With men, you may have been in a situation where maybe you're in a bar and you sense something is going to happen soon, and then all of a sudden a fight breaks out over there. And that's what it is, isn't it? It's your body noticing something before your mind can kind of catch up.
That's right, because our bodies pick up on that stuff. It's like when they talk about first impressions that people make on people, and you have all these experts that tell you how to read facial features, body language, and things like that. But you can have someone stand in front of you and display seemingly right body language, but you feel that something's off, and it's your body reading the energy of the other body. That's consciously, you just don't understand it. But if you're tuned in with your body, then like you don't need to understand it. You just need to kind of tune in to like to that feeling and understand what that means for you. Like you might not understand what kind of a danger is there, but if you understand that this feeling means get out of there, then you just go and get out of it, and you don't think about why. With some people, especially like a lot of people, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of women, we like to have control over certain things. And we like to, as a form of control, we like to know why certain things happen. It kind of, if we can understand something, we can control it. So it's one of those things why some people might have difficulty either tuning into intuition or releasing attachment to certain things, to certain past events, because they want to understand why certain things happen. But for you to release that and to create a different outcome next time, you don't need to understand it. You just need to like accept it as an event in the past and detach from the story of what that means for you now and for your future.
Yeah. And I have 2 points on that, because I think the connection, regardless of the way that someone's body language is, I always say to people, if you have to use a dating app, get off it as quick as possible. Like if you speak to someone and you're like, oh yeah, I like this person, go meet them, because you cannot work out, whether actually you have any sort of connection until you see each other. I don't think
Yeah.
that can be, because anyone can act in a message, right?
Yes, however, you do put frequency into your content. So there is like you by looking at the photo, you transmit certain frequency. By messages, you also transmit certain frequency.
Okay.
And like a good example would be someone writes a great copy for like marketing purposes or a story or something. And technically, two pieces of copy could be very similar, but one has that energy behind it and the other one is flat. So it's that frequency behind it as well. But as a human being, we have multiple frequencies at any one time in us. There's intention at that particular time, there's the thoughts at that particular time, there's how we're feeling. Like, for example, have we just come out from an argument? We bring that with us. So it's a mix of things that you have probably more touch points in terms of determining like your vibe with that person rather than just from one piece of content or from one photo, because that photo could have been taken whenever when they were in a different state. Like they might have been really happy at the time, they might have been on holiday, so they had a different vibration at that time because that's in the past. And whatever they are now, they could be emitting something completely different. And another point in terms of us picking up on the energy of people, and even like some really good psychics, they can do readings remotely as well without even seeing a person. So if you're very in tune, you can pick up on it, but that's, not everyone is that tuned in. And that's I certainly wouldn't rely on that for someone. Seeing someone face to face where there's more things to see, more things to feel from that person is certainly a better option. But it's like an example, you might be standing with your back to someone, or like a person could be hiding and watching you, like you were saying before, and you feel it. So, like, there's no body language there. So, how do you know someone's watching you? They're not making noise. How do you know there's eyes on you? It's like I can feel the eyes on my back, that saying.
Yeah.
So how do you feel that? You are picking up on like the frequency of the intention of the person who's watching you. So that's just one of those things.
So that does actually lead on to my second point. And because I have a lot of people, and I suppose this is in every area of life. This isn't just like dating and relationships. This is, work and kind of their emotional side and physical side, where people go full pelt into everything. And I work with a lot of people where they will go from relationship, end that relationship, and then straight into another relationship because they're so desperate for that love. And I hate using the word desperate, but that they're craving
Mhm.
the feeling of love, and craving what they see other people have got, and sometimes obviously not actual real. And then they end up in the same kind of cycles with the same kind of person.
Mhm.
What would your advice be to someone like that? I work with a lot of people that have been through a lot of abuse,
Mhm.
and they go kind of from one abusive relationship to another, and as soon as they spot the signs, they do then
Mhm.
get rid of that person, but they see it as they've wasted time, and they're not necessarily picking up on things kind of straight away, because a lot of people, I don't know, they're just repeating it. It goes with what you say, because I agree with that things that are familiar are safe.
Mhm. Yeah.
So you tend to start attracting the same kind of things. And I was there, and this is kind of why I teach a lot of the stuff that I teach, because that was me up until my husband that I'm married to now. It was every person that I had ever been in a relationship with was the same. They looked different, but they
Yeah.
were the same. And actually, looking a little bit deeper, they are all of them exactly the same as my biological father, who treated my mum like that.
Mhm.
So, what would your advice be to someone that keeps getting into these same cycles? And even though they recognize once they're in and things start going wrong, they do have kind of the confidence to be like, bye. How do they stop putting out that frequency?
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, the first step is always awareness. Once you're aware of something, you can change it. And if you like you don't know what you don't know. So that's why it's good to ask for help from a mentor, a coach, or therapist or counselor or someone who can recognize that there is a pattern and can be that third party observer for you and say, hang on, you've done this before, and like it can stop the pattern. It can stop the cycle. Because once you've stopped the cycle, then you can do something about it. Otherwise, you keep running on autopilot because your subconscious mind keeps running the show. And like you were saying, and I was mentioning it earlier, your nervous system and your subconscious mind is used to a certain treatment. So, unfortunately, to subconscious mind, it doesn't understand that the way we're treated now is bad for us. It knows this is the way we are. Therefore, whenever you're trying to shift it, get away from it, like you were saying, so you end one abusive relationship and then you just jump into the next one straight away. It's because that gap between relationships is very unnerving to your system. It's very turbulent to your nervous system because it thinks that having no relationship is bad. We have to get back into the relationship again. And it goes back to what it knows. It goes back to the things that are familiar. And because with relationships, as with anything else, there's a whole combination of things. There's your limiting beliefs. There's like the trauma of the past. So all of that carries with it certain vibration because you've experienced certain emotions, and the emotions have attached themselves to stories, or stories attach themselves to the emotions, and it kind of gets trapped in your body. You're holding everything in your body, and because all of the emotions, like your thoughts, your emotions, everything has different frequencies, so all of those frequencies get trapped in your body, and therefore whatever frequency you are vibrating at, that's what you are matching. It's like you have, let's say, a radio tower transmitting a certain song over a certain frequency, and the radio in your car has to be tuned into that frequency to pick up that particular song. If it's tuned into a different frequency, it picks up something else. If it's not tuned into a specific frequency, it just picks up noise or nothing at all. So your body is currently tuned into the frequency of that particular life, that particular type of a relationship. Well, you can change the frequency, but you can't just change it like a switch in the car. You have to clear the frequency that's there now. So, frequency, and with that is like the emotions and everything. So once that's cleared, and once you are completely neutral, it's almost like you wipe the memory from your mind, but you don't wipe the memory. It's kind of like you detach yourself from the memory. So, in other words, you recognize certain things has happened and you realize it's happened to you, but you no longer apply it to your life. You no longer attach it to a story that you are a certain way because of this, or you are not able to create a life because of that, or you're not worthy, or this has always happened in the past, therefore it can't happen for me in the future, or my parents were that way, so no wonder, or I grew up in this part of town, that's why I'm this way. So it's kind of like you start detaching all of the things that bundled themselves into this story, into the life, and you separate it so that you become like a neutral being, like a pure soul, and you can build from this point whatever you want. So basically, we start at clearing the nervous system, clearing the emotion, because the emotion is what kind of attaches itself to the stories,
Yeah.
and then that emotion creates the vibration. And people will often feel certain things when you start talking about certain type of a man or certain relationship or a certain way they've treated you. Like, for example, every time you got a promotion at work, your partner wanted more attention and was saying how they're not worthy or whatever, and you felt guilty. So like there might be that pattern repeating itself. So you might be feeling that particular story, that particular moment in your body, like say in your stomach, it might be tightening and you start feeling that guilt. So once there is an awareness and you realize, okay, whenever something like this happens where I feel guilty for having success and I start feeling it here, then you can start detaching that feeling, that emotion from that situation. And when they're separate, whenever that situation happens again, you will no longer feel that guilt. And when you know you no longer feel that guilt, you know that frequency has been cleared from your body. And then because you have awareness at that point, you can choose what to think. Maybe you just misjudged the situation. Maybe the situation is how it appears, but you can actually choose to feel differently. You can choose to walk away from it and celebrate your promotion.
I like that. And I get that because when I think about my life, I think of myself as like old Sam and new Sam. And the old version, like I know that those things happened to me and I know that, that was my life. But actually I don't recognize that person anymore. Like I was a completely different person. And although obviously I know that I was the same person, like, physically being, but emotionally and inside, I was not the same person.
Mhm.
And I wouldn't have been able to deal with some of the things that have come up since then. For example, like my son has ADHD. If I'd have been in my past self,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have been able to be a good parent for him. And he's a good kid. People associate ADHD with bad behavior. He is very well behaved and he talks about his emotions. I don't think that he would probably be as good as what he is had I have not grown and changed what
Yeah,
I was
actually,
doing.
yeah, I'm glad you brought up that point because, and that's what happens in the relationships. We feed off each other's energy too. So, like with your son, because you are calmer, you have tools how to navigate your own emotions and things like that. He feeds off that energy too. Like he feeds off the calm, feeds off like being more rational. So it helps him with what he needs to do. And often what happens in relationships when there is like explosive behavior and a lot of emotions and anger or whatever, well, like one person will start yelling, well, the other person will start yelling, and like emotions really escalate. So, and the more one escalates, then the more the other escalates. It's like, I want to say, like with social media, that's why a lot of posts about, something controversial or anger or something, they get a lot of comments because like people just can't help. They just feed off that energy. So, and that's what happens in the relationships too. And the relationship itself could be much better if both people learn how to control their behavior, basically, their emotions. So if even one person knew how to neutralize that, the other person wouldn't be wouldn't get as high as they probably do in the normal circumstances. Like when I think in the earlier days in my marriage, I would always pick an argument because to my nervous system, like things going smoothly for too long was just not normal. Like for some reason, there had to be some sort of drama. So I would like pick some sort of an argument. And my husband is a redhead, so if he had a bad day at work, he'd come in and he'd be angry just at life, not at me, but at life. But then I pick up on that energy, and then as an empath, I sit in it, and then I get angry and sad, and then I stay in it, and then I don't understand why he's still not sad because he's moved on it hours ago. So once I've learned how to manage my own energy and emotion, it was like, oh yeah, well, he's angry. Well, something's happened. That's got nothing to do with me. So like, no argument. Or something has happened. Well, I'll make a point about it, but then I don't go on and on about it. Like it just fades away. So like there's none of these spikes. And when there are spikes, then it's like I can feel okay without spiraling down and feeling horrible for days at the time because like I know, okay, we both need a break, but I can still be happy, I can still be at peace, I can still do my things, and then when he comes down, we just get back together and live a normal life.
Yeah. I think, yeah. Because, well, so I used to work in an all male prison. And there is a very big difference between the staff that when someone is kind of kicking off and they're really angry, and the staff that go in and they're like, stop it, and they start shouting and raising their voice, and then that person just gets angrier and angrier. The difference in responses to, like, my response, because I was taught a phrase that I'd kind of lived by, is that you don't fight fire with fire, you fight it with water.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would go in and I'd be like, okay, so what is the problem? I hear you. And so many people were like, calm down, like shouting. And you keep your voice at a certain level. It's very difficult, even for the angriest person, to kind of stay up here. It's very hard because of
Yeah,
what
because
you're
then
giving out.
you need something. It's like that fire needs to be fed with something to
Yeah,
continue burning at that level. Like, you've got your fireplace and you stoke fire to keep it at a certain temperature. Well, like you have to add something to it at some point. Like it's not just gonna keep burning at that level. Like it's just gonna fade away sooner or later.
yeah. And I think it's really important, like what you said about if someone's had a bad day, because obviously I don't teach about work and entrepreneurs, and I know that is what you do. You work with entrepreneurs mainly, don't you?
Yeah.
But I do operate from 7 core areas of life, and one of those is work and, like, knowledge, which is your purpose. And basically all of them are linked.
Mm-hmm.
I always say to people, if you've had a bad day at work and then you are going out on a date, or you're already in a relationship, what kind of thing will you be putting out? What vibe will you be giving to that person if you hate your job? And most people, even if you run a business, you're in that 24 hours a day pretty much. If you go to a regular job, you still spend more time in that job than you do anything else. How does that mess with the rest of your life if you are unhappy in that area and you're stressed and you feel like you can't cope?
Hmm. It's hard to be like really unhappy in one area and be like completely everything great and just couldn't be better in another area. Like there's always an overlap. And you bring the energy to every situation. So you've come from a stressful job or, bad day at work or something like that, and you come on a date or you come home and you bring that energy with you. So if you have that awareness of how it affects you, then you know what to do about it. So a lot of people have a misconception that they need to be a high vibe all the time. They need to be high vibration all the time. So what can happen is one, then they'll start stressing that they are not high vibration, that they're feeling sad, angry, and that kind of focuses your mind back onto being sad and angry. And then you also start creating stories around that, like this judgment and all of that. Or they're trying to mask it by pretending to be high vibration, but at that core nervous system, subconscious mind level, it's not. So it's kind of like you're overlapping another frequency on top of this frequency, and they're just fighting with each other. Whichever one is stronger, which is going to be your subconscious mind and nervous system, because that's responsible for most of your actions, that's the one that's going to win anyway. But if you can't clear it and shift it, and by all means, you can feel some anger or sadness for a while, as long as it doesn't become your dominant state of being. You come home, like you've had a stressful day at work, you do need some time to decompress. If you have an awareness of how you're feeling and your state of being, hence your vibration, and you know how it actually influences your actions and your thoughts. For example, your pattern is when you are stressed and overwhelmed, you start snapping at everyone and then you start complaining that you get no help, that no one else is doing house chores and things like that. Like you're kind of aware that's your pattern. Well, you come home, you are mindful of not jumping on everyone that they haven't done the dishes. You let it go, you clear that, you let it rest, And you might find that your partner will actually get up and do the dishes without being asked. You might even say to them, I've just had such a bad day at work, I just need a rest. And they might actually volunteer to do something for you. Like you're not doing it to cause a certain action from them, but you have an awareness of yourself, of how that affects your behavior and where that behavior normally leads if you continue with it and if you give in to your emotions and you stop yourself there, you bring yourself to a neutral place, you give yourself some space to just be and not actually react, like not being reactive from that place, but kind of being in control of your emotional and nervous state, then you will actually notice that because you are calmer in situations, your relationship, your household, basically your life starts shifting and starts becoming calmer as well. Because that side of your life starts becoming calmer, then you also feel calmer every time you interact with these people. So it kind of, it's like where before we were saying the fire feeds off fire and starts going more intense. This is the opposite. It's like this part calms down, then this part calms down. Then because this part came down, this part calms down. So things start falling into place, and you have then much happier and calmer relationships with people. And the same thing at work. Like, how many colleagues and team members have the same behaviors as people do at home, just for, different on different subjects, for different purposes.
Yeah. And I think with that, like people, if you are at work and you are around like a kind of gossip culture, and that
Hmm.
happens a
Yeah.
lot where people are just like talking about that other colleague over there and it's constant, that you will automatically bring that home with you. And then you
Mm.
start saying, to whoever you live with, hopefully not your children, but I know people that do this, where they come home and they start like talking about other people to their children, and then you're just creating a next generation of people that do that same stuff, and you're not
Mm.
giving out a positive vibe to anyone.
There's a difference between telling stories from your day and gossiping.
Yes, and being
And
horrible about
and
other
even,
people.
even gossip could be just a story. It's kind of just that intention and how you talk about things. So like if the intention is to put someone in a bad light, well, whether you project that onto another person in your mind, your body just projects it. So you're projecting that energy without specifically targeting the person that you are talking about. So your conscious mind thinks, talking about that person, how does that relate to me? But your system transmits that frequency, so it does affect you because now you are attracting that. It's like you probably know people like that. Everything always seems to happen to them. Whenever there's drama, that person is involved. Or like when you read that person's update on social media, it's always something has happened to them. And it just seems to be those people and not other people. So how come things happen to them but not to someone else? But it's because of that, because they transmit that and attract it to themselves as well.
So I know that we need to kind of wrap this up. Trying to kind of control your frequency and manifest your dream life, it does take work. It's not a simple solution. And people, the same as you, would always advise people to get somebody else to help them and point that stuff out. And even if that is anyone that is listening that's got a teenager, will know that teenagers point out your like worst traits.
Children in general.
Yes, where if you're not acting in the correct way, like literally the other day, me and my husband had a bit of a debate, and then I was talking to my daughter, and she was like, I don't think that we should talk right now because you are in an emotional state from your previous conversation, and I don't think that this conversation is going to be productive. She's 15, obviously she's listened to me a lot because a lot of the time she says my own words back to me. But having someone, whether that is a coach, whether that's a therapist, or a friend that will be kind of brutally honest and you not get upset about it is really key to any sort of development in life. But to the people that maybe they're not ready to get a coach, or they're not really sure, what would be kind of like if someone could start to regulate their nervous system, to start putting things into place and be able to do it, like not the whole thing and manifest the whole life that they'd like, but just a kind of quick tip of, you can do this one thing to get you out of this emotion very quickly, what would you say?
Okay. So one thing that is my favorite thing to do as a first step, and that's to do with awareness, because once you have an awareness, you can shift things. So, and how do we get awareness if we're running on autopilot? You ask yourself why you are doing what you're doing, why you're thinking what you're thinking, why you're behaving the way you're behaving, or why you're feeling what you're feeling. So it does require a level of control of yourself with your mind. In other words, like if you spiral down into clinical depression and you've got absolutely no control of your mind, like that's not going to help, because you need to get yourself back into some form of control. But when you can control yourself with your mind, and that's simple. All you have to do is you just ask yourself a question. So let's say you are going to a shop and you are deciding whether to buy a new kettle, and one is $300 and the other one is $30. You really want the $300 one, but you automatically gravitate to the $30 one. Well, ask yourself why. What has come up for you? Is this something like your mother's voice in your head saying, no, that's too expensive, we don't have that kind of money? Is it that maybe a belief that brands take advantage of you and charge you, 10 times the price for something that only costs a little amount of money? Like, where kind of every time you do some sort of an action or think some sort of a thought, just stop yourself and ask, is this your thought? Is this your belief? Or did it come from somewhere in the past? Did it come from someone else? Did you just come out of an argument and now you are talking to someone else about something? Did you bring that conversation that you've just had, the argument, into this one? Did you say the things that you said, or reacted a certain way because of that previous argument? So, as much as possible, question your decisions, your actions, your emotions, whatever is happening for you. The more you can question why you do the things you do the way you do them, the more you can start unraveling those limiting beliefs and the things that come up for you, the more you can start detaching those stories. And layer by layer, you can start peeling back and clearing the emotions and limiting beliefs and the stories that come up.
Amazing. Yeah, I think that's great. Because yeah, that is a lot of the stuff that I get people to do, where I'm like, you need to be asking your questions as though I am on your shoulder going, but why?
Mhm. Yeah, it's great to have a mentor to point out the patterns. Sometimes we get so caught up in life that we just don't notice it. And sometimes things are very sneaky and subtle that you also don't realize. Like the certain behavior is so ingrained that we don't even think twice about it. But if you can even ask yourself one question through the day of why you did something the way you did it, it's already an improvement. Like if like one person in a relationship can start feeling better and happy about themselves, the whole relationship will change in no time.
Amazing. Well, this has been very, very interesting. I thought that it would be when I kind of read your description and started going through your website, and I was like, oh, yes, this is up my street. So, Julia, if people want to find out a little bit more about you, where can they find you?
They can find me on my website at alchemyofcreation.com, or they can find me on Instagram, which is at alchemyofcreation_.
Cool. And I will link that in the show notes anyway, so people can find it if they need to. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for being on.
Well, thanks for having me. That was a fun conversation.
Oh my God, how amazing was that conversation? I will link everything to do with Julia in the show notes. I really hope that you have taken a lot from this episode so that you can live your best life. You only get one of them. And while we're on the conversation, I am super, super excited to announce that I have just introduced the digital version of my self-love card deck. People have been asking me for it for a while, and in all honesty, I didn't know how to do the tech with it, which is why it took me so long. But I now have it, and you can now have it instantly to your inbox. If you want to start manifesting the life that you have always wanted, start aligning your mindset, building your confidence, and building your beliefs in yourself, get your digital card deck. I will link it in the show notes. And as always, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to me. Thank yourself for taking action, whatever that action is going to be. If you absolutely love this, please share it with somebody else that you think it would help. I will speak to you next time. I'm Sam Morris. Speak soon.